I I just wanted to make a short video on dispelling the the Jewish Hitler myth. You know, there's lots of how to say, there's like a divide between people who are seeing that the problem is the Jews, and there's like a it's quite funny. It's like a theme that runs through a lot of people there with saying, Hitler was allegedly Jewish. So, well, let's look at the facts. What did National Socialism bring to the country? You know, is it of any importance whether he was Jewish? Um, what's the whole gambit? Is it that uh, Hitler's being blamed for setting up Israel, or because there's the Balfour Declaration, there's the Peel Commission, there's the Whitehead Commission. There's these things that kind of stand in the way of Hitler per se being the person who's being accused of leading this hypnosis of the people where they fall into the Nazi trance and kill 6 million. But even I think if people are sort of saying, well, obviously, what Holocaust was any Jews involved um, in that way would be something that even what I'm saying is that even if people have got this idea of that 6 million Jews is a complete fallacy, then in that sense, what are they trying to say about like the National Socialist regime per se as being a setup by the Rothschilds or Rockefellers, when you know it's easy to point the finger at the world leaders around that time, um, Truman, Chamberlain, um, Stalin, Mao. Was Mao then? Yeah, no, Mao was a little later, wasn't he? But he was certainly fighting the war for communism at that time. Um, so that would be the main players in America, Russia, China, Germany, France to a large extent. Obviously, there was the war with Franco, uh, where Hitler was helping Franco secure Spain for the nationalists against communists, as was Mussolini. Let's look at the scope of things now in an intellectual way, where we can sort of sit down and say, okay, possibilities. Look at Quisling in Norway. Another hero. Somewhere at some point there has to be like a cut-off point where now, or is there? I don't know. Maybe the Jews are so mystical that there isn't a cut-off point. Let's take it that there isn't then. Well, you know, what did National Socialism do? Did it promulgate a sustainable economy? Did it have its own interest-free money system, as North Korea has now, for its own people, not for the visitors? Or at least the well, you can't get a loan in North Korea, can you? So that's interest-free. um, go watch Dresnok. Go watch Dresnok and see what he has to say in contrast to the American dream and his life since he defected to North Korea. You know, is he Jewish? Is North Korea Jewish? when they're fighting their position, and I think this is the you know the parallel, if you like, of North Korea. Certainly, the former British ambassador to North Korea said that North Korea is not communist, which it dropped in 2009, and I'll go slightly into those reasons as to why it was communist and at the time with Kim Il Sung. Um, the ambassador, the former ambassador for North Korea, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but if you go to the School of National Socialism Facebook page, I think it's the first post on there. He says it's a deeply racial, uh, political thing. They're preserving their race. South Korea's got what 43 U.S. bases, and lots of South Korean girls will marry um, the Americans. Well, that's not allowed in North Korea. There's 22 million of them preserving their Korean race, and they have every right to. And I think the it's largely what's needed now, isn't it? This cohesion, which is what National Socialism brought after the Weimar. I don't think Hitler was sort of pro the Weimar, was he? When he was a down and out. Um, when he Oh, there's an interesting fact as well. I'm from Liverpool, and they say that Hitler visited Liverpool when in fact it was Stalin who visited Liverpool. There's records of Stalin being in England at that time, 1912, I think it was. There's absolutely not even a local legend here about Hitler being here, or my parents who were alive when I was young would have told me, and they didn't. So I just but Stalin, there is record of Stalin being here, and these are the things that we need to look at in regards to what's being coined the perestroika deception. Communism in many ways is just another sort of twist in what Judaism is, where Judaism is Zionism, it's orthodoxy, it's liberal, it's left, it's it's conservative, neoconservative. So there are many things there that we can also, how's to say, attribute to Judaism that way. And I have another video on my channel there called Jews, and it goes into the whole thing from Abraham. Like it was after I'd done a study on a 10-hour lecture by a Jewish PhD guy, some Bland his name was. I'd done a video on my thoughts on Jews. Now it's still current because that's going over the past 3,000 years. Now the thing is, back to dispelling the myth as to whether Hitler was a Jew. Well, let's say he was. Let's look at the Jews who are in power now, and let's see what they're doing. Okay, so Obama's Jewish. Holland is Jewish. Merkel, she's double Jewish. Um, I don't know about Merkel, but she certainly, you know. Oh, there's a book called Twilight Over England by somebody who was called Law Haw Haw. Now, in the area I'm in 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 the north end of Liverpool, just outside Liverpool actually. It's really nice by the docks, and yeah, Lord Haw Haw. His name is um, William Joyce. Now he's an American, Irish American, and he was in England just a couple of months before the war broke out. and he scarpered over to Germany knowing what was coming. He was like, I'm not staying in England, you know. Took his family or his wife and started broadcasting from Germany to England. The show was called Germany Calling, Germany Calling. You can check some of the audios out on YouTube. But the book he wrote, Twilight Over England, is available on archive.org. Massive, wonderful site. Love it. Been visiting since it started. Part of the Gutenberg project, um, where they're trying to get every single book that's in print in every university in the whole of America onto PDF format for public access for free. So that's reasonable, and I think they have a donate button sporadically. Certainly, I'd like to give if I had anything to give. Um, but you know that I think gets down the avenues of charities, doesn't it? Anyhow, so let's stick on the um, at least for me, the way I like to assess things is looking at contrasts. You know, if I want to see how black something is, I look how white something else is. You know, if I look at something grey, I only get a partial. You get me, don't you? So like, so I tend to go to extremes. Now I've fashioned this style of educating myself really based on traditional schooling, because I was largely schooled traditionally up to a point, obviously with the times, the modern times, and everything. So so you know, I'd say I've got good aptitude for assessing and for estimating and making an educated guess on this or that. Excuse me. And the whole sort of like Jewish Hitler myth, it's getting a bit tedious now, is it? Um, you know, it's like it's past 70 years on, which is supposed to be the cut off point, or at least when I was growing up, it was like they were saying the evil experiments of Dr. Mengele, all of those papers would be released after 50 years, and that was like 1970s, I think 1980s. Well, yeah, here's me sitting at home waiting avidly, young boy, who learnt lots of this just off TV, as was the way at the time, and maybe reading from libraries. I was an avid reader, still am. Um, yeah, so then it like got kicked back to the 90s, and then you know, where are they? Where are these papers of the evil Dr. Mengele? There's not one. Now, I was watching My Father. It was Charlton Heston's last movie, um, and you know, go watch that movie. It's about um, Mengele, Dr. Mengele. So that's another myth in my eyes dispelled. Well, I went to the library here in this borough, this area, and they told me I need to go to the central library. So I went to the central library and I asked about these. You know, I said actually the reason why I was sent to the central library is because I'd asked about um, any books on espionage around World War Two time or leading up to World War Two time in this area. It's like point blank no. The Liverpool Central Library, which has something like over 50,000 books, hasn't got one book, not one. So, so I looked on Hansard Millbank. Um, I think I posted one of the things that I found on there on my blog. My blog's Peter Cooney enabler.wordpress.com. So, so yeah, there was a couple of Scouse lads or Scouse Irish, whatever, allegedly spying or thingying with the enemy or something. But a funny thing happened in the in the library was that the chief librarian at the reference library, she told me that the war, Second World War, for the first 8 months was called the phony war because no one knew there was a war. No one, like what war? It was only down in London where they declared war on Germany via the Danzig corridor, which which prior to World War One had belonged to Prussia. It's all a bit mazy, but I think um, the ideas of Frederick the Great was to have something of a state that that mirrored something of what the Romanovs were enjoying, and he wanted to make this socialist style state still based on Christian principles, which are based on paganist principles. Go look at Evola. Um, so Frederick the Great wanted to build a socialist utopia, and everyone was involved and welcome because he needed people. Anyway, well, he wanted to conquer lands, then blah blah blah. So, so the reason why he wanted to conquer lands is what I see mirrored in the National Socialist doctrine. You know, the the stormtroopers, the SA, who preceded the SS, or at least certainly were much more popular and much more active than the SS. The SA with can't remember his name now, but anyway, he was killed during the Night of the Long Knives, which was what was that anyway? So if at any point of of the National Socialist outgrowth from the Weimar Republic, I would say the Night of the Long Knives would be the one point where I think if there is any Jewish influence, then that would be it, because the Himmlerites were a different sort of group to Rom. Rom was he was the man of action, like, and the myth is that like he was homosexual or whatever, which other than your usual sort of Jewish diatribe, the victors write the history. I can't find anything on, and I think I'm a fairly good researcher. Certainly I'd pitch my research against anybody's in the world. Tell me a researcher who can research as much as I've researched, and I'll show you my research. Put it that way. So yeah. So the night of the long knives. Then out came the propaganda movie, which it was, Triumph of the Will. Now I'm not degrading or derogatizing or anything. I'm just making an observation of the time and the things that took place without prejudice. That I'm not akin to anything. I'm just seeing it for what it is, and I'm telling you how I see it. And if you see it different, if you can find something different, you know, tell someone, But that's how I see it. So obviously the SS then took on the mantle of the SA, but the SA was really they were the workers, and they were the ass kickers, and they were the ones who got shit done. And the SS kind of, I think, stole their thunder, and Hitler, for some reason, whether it be due to financing the whole deal or whatever, I don't know. Now that may not be correct, because um, there's a book again on archive.org by, I think it's called Hitler's Banker, but actually the title isn't really it doesn't cover the whole story, to be honest. His name is Schacht. Schacht was Jewish. Um, Now you've got to remember, say like in England, I think in Liverpool there's 3,000, said to be 3,000 Jews. In the world, there's supposed to be 14 to 16 million. In New York, there's a million. In London, there's like 200,000 or something. Leeds, there's like, there's a big lot in Leeds, in Manchester. Now, in Berlin, there was 70,000 around the time that the Nationalist Socialists were voted in. And I think that would be comparable to Marseille, which is probably the most Jewish city in, certainly in France, possibly in Europe. Maybe it's Berlin again. I don't know. Excuse me. So yeah, so I think much of the propaganda that we've seen about National Socialist Germany, or at least that's been available, has always been, um, you know, soldiers walking up and down, um, just nothing that isn't regimental, isn't uniform, isn't traditional. There's no modernity, there's no uh, tech as 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 we're spoiled with now in many senses. So there's it's like anything, isn't it? It's easy to criticize, but let's have a look at you know let let's imagine that we're trying to sell it to someone. All right, so if I was trying to sell British politics to the people of England, I would not have a clue how to sell that politics. I just do not know how the hell they get away with it. I wouldn't know. Would you know how to sell that crap? What they sell? Obama, Putin, um, Holland, Merkel. How the hell? Well, you know, if you level your base at minimum, then something above minimum looks pretty good. That's the way I look at it. I don't know if people have been to Germany. I've been to Munich, I've been to Hamburg, I've been to Paderborn area, sort of like Hamlin, Lipstadt. I've been to Cologne. Yeah, they're the places I've been to in Germany. Yeah, stopping off at like Tyrol in northern Italy, which is a bit German as well. Anyway, it's really nice, really lovely. Um, People are so. I mean, yeah, they're really nice, but I think if you've heard Jonathan Bowden talking, he's well worth a look on YouTube. Jonathan Bowden, Bowden. What he says here about England and certainly America, and I think England and America share much of the commonalities because of the language, much more so than than Germany, France, Sweden, Norway. Even though there are strong ties to American peoples with those countries, I remember being in Spain and I met some Hungarian people who lived in America and only spoke Hungarian. I was like, and yet they maintain that Hungarianness, which is cool. There was one of them who spoke English, like, but he didn't particularly like to. He was Hungarian. So yeah, they were from America, and that was interesting. And again, there's another sort of isolated set, isn't there? If like the Mennonites, is it the Amish? You know, what peoples I don't even know, like French Canadians. You know, due to this language barrier, we really don't get, in my opinion at least, we really don't get the full story. Not that I would like, but I am quite nosy, inquisitive, and they say things like on a need to know basis. Well, I always need to know. Why wouldn't I? So yeah, I mean, look at the look at what National Socialism is. Okay, so a nation is made up of its people and it's made up of its land. That largely what makes a nation. Now the country is really the land per se, you know, uh, and generally borders were rivers, seas, mountain ranges, whatever the case may be, um, and that would be like the border type thing, just natural, people don't really go over there, so it's like, well, you know, I don't really go over there. Just fucking common sense, isn't it? Why would you go over somewhere that you're not going to use and you're not familiar with and it's not really home? I mean, yeah, you can, blah blah. Probably will in the future as tech becomes more advanced. But isn't that organic outgrowth? Isn't that what we should be doing anyway? We should be conquering this universe by now. So anyway, so we got like a group of people. Now obviously the origins of people is we live in an infinite universe that came from God, from infinity, um, and will last forever and infinity. So we haven't really got anything substantial to work with on the origins, and how did we come into being and everything like that. I don't know, but certainly I came from a family, myself personally, um, who are from Irish stock. Now, allegedly, I'm told that Irish is part of the Celtic peoples. Well, the Celtic peoples I can find in southern Spain, I can find in Italy, I can find in France, I can find, you know, in a good portion of Europe, really. Um, Scotland, Faroe Islands, presuming. Um, so yeah, and then your Slavic peoples, obviously. You know, in Slovakia, I would imagine they're Slav. Poland, and then there's your Rus, isn't there? Your Rus people of Ukraine, who I think are part of the Germanic line. Um, so yeah, I would say really there's like three three main branches of peoples in that way. I mean, Luxembourg see themselves as being a people on their own. Uh, Swiss people, even though poor Switzerland is in a terrible state with immigration, and obviously there's where all the banks are, isn't it? And who own the banks? The Muslims. Um, so yeah, so your basic peoples are your Slavs, your Germanic, your Rus, and your Celts, and that makes up like your Aryan contingency of Europe. So back to the Hitler issue. Why would Hitler not be Germanic? Why would he be Jewish? Certainly, his parents seem to come from that stock, from the Germanic stock, rather than the Jewish stock. I don't think he spoke Yiddish. Um, there's quite a few pictures of him, and he's not wearing a YAML. Uh, Judaism, I think, was certainly between the Weimar Republic when the Jews were pouring in from Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Russia, um, Czechoslovakia, Ukraine. The Jews were just taking over that whole area at that time, um, and I don't see Hitler making any moves there. Certainly, looking at his his life story. He was a he was a student of art, and because of it, was a down and out. Because he wanted to do art and would spend money going to the opera rather than eating. You know, uh, it's an artist's way, isn't it? And then he wanted to be an architect, which obviously is drawings and paintings and stuff like that. Where did he get the time for all of this uh, Zionist ideology to be trained into him while he was hanging around with the National Socialists? In fact, wasn't it even the yeah, I think it was the National Socialist Party, and I think when Hitler joined, I think he added the Workers' Side, something like that. Um, yeah, so I think Dietrich Eckhart, in the book, is it From Moses to Bolshevism, something like that, or Moses to Lenin, the story of Bolshevism, something like that. Conversations between Eckhart and Hitler. Wouldn't Hitler have kind of known all that stuff? And I get the impression from reading it that it was Eckhart who'd done all the reading from the Bible and was sort of like teaching Hitler that you know it could be me. Fix me hair. So yeah, that's one book to look at. I mean, obviously Hitler had his own Mein Kampf where he talks about the Jewish question, the Judenfragen. You know, read that if you can get some information on that. What was the other one? His second book, Hitler's second book. Now, there's a interesting chap there called Heidegger. He's known as the greatest philosopher of the 20th century, or one of the like top two or three. He's like way up there in philosophy. Uh, in listening to Bowden on Heidegger, he sort of summed up Heidegger's philosophy as being the value of life is based on the value of death. How much value do you give death? Sort of contrasts the value that you hold for life, which is quite profound, isn't it? In summation. So yeah, Heidegger was a National Socialist, apparently a brilliant man. He wore his National Socialist uniform to the university where he was a professor. He helped take out the Jewish people from the education system in the new National Socialist Germany after 1933. There's another point, isn't there? Hitler wouldn't take the position until it was it Ludenhof or one of those. There's plenty of pictures of him depicting where he's going to the main guy, like the Prussian guy, and he's sort of like bowing his head. That's where he's getting the nod from the figurehead of the German people, then to sort of go on and be what was the Kaiser, and to become the Chancellor or the Führer, the leader. So again, that doesn't kind of like marry in with like all the shenanigans that we see now, like Ted Cruz there the other day in Wisconsin, with Trump and everything. Apparently, well, certainly Mike and Scott, with True Tube, True TRU Tube TUBE.TV. They visited the Wisconsin rally, and Ted Cruz has been handed it on a plate really when perhaps he shouldn't have done. But that's not the first time. I think certainly here in Britain, I remember there was some funny stuff going on with Florida, and was it not Mitt Romney, Al Gore and George Bush Jr. I think it was something like the 5 minute car journey down the road to the electoral counting place took took overnight and never happened. So therefore, Al Gore lost or some crap anyway. You know, it's all crap because it's just a big construct, isn't it? Here's how I say it: like, you go and start a National Socialist Party, you think you're socialist. See how you get on. See how much you can do away from Marxism and see how far you get. You know, let's live the reality here. Like, let's see if there is any national socialism that would allowed. It's that simple. Like, at least for me. But you know, I've only done endless hours and hours and hours, days upon days of study. I'm often asleep at the computer, or like this morning, which is really the night time for me. I didn't sleep till after 9:30, and then I had like 4 hours sleep, and then I'm back on. I'm conversing with people who largely with the people who I'm conversing with. We're swapping information, new information. That Like, there was just one there about the trafficking of the German soldiers after the war, and the monies that were made from that. It was like 50 billion or something like that, because it took them years, to finally disperse of those soldiers. Um, it's like it's like it's like if you haven't read books like Secrets of the MI6, the what's it called? There's another one. It's about the British Empire, and it's like the arsenal of the British Empire or something like that. I'll just give you a quick synopsis. Like in the secrets of the MI5 or MI6 book, I think it's MI6. What it says there is in the 30s, when the National Socialists were voted in, 10,000 Jews came to Britain. That's what it says. I've got it on PDF, and it's a published book. Like, um, yeah, 10,000 of them came here to work for MI6, MI5, MI6, which was the CIS, Secret Intelligence Service, and they ran the Enigma, and they've got a vast network of spies, and Hitler had was 150,000 Jewish or part Jewish people in his ranks. So, do people even get what the Jewishness is? I mean, it's multifaceted. Like I was saying there with the book The Twilight on England, um, on the archive.org link, at least on the link I've got for it, there's a review, a great review by a guy, and what he's saying, it makes a lot of sense. You know, go read that. I'm just trying to think exactly what it is now, but I'll just bounce back to the 10,000 Jews who've come to England um, from that book. Then there was the Empire, there's the Secrets of the British Empire, or Weaponry or Arsenal, or Weaponry it might be. Anyway, what it says there, amazingly enough, is that of the 70 plus, I think it was 79 or 72 countries of the Commonwealth before the war, they were building weaponry very much in line with what Stalin was doing, because Stalin's sort of excuse was pretty much similar to Hitler's, but I don't think Russia was bound by the Versailles Treaty, but I think Russia felt that Germany wasn't going to continue to abide by the Versailles Treaty when it was just being raped, robbed, pillaged. Every undesirable thing that we see happening in today's economy was happening then in what's called the Weimar. And I think Even if it wasn't forecasted by Stalin in that way, he was still building tons and tons of weaponry, um, which I think didn't he continue, like when he first came in power, he stopped Lenin's idea, and then he realized, oh shit, I better continue on. So he started again with Lenin's, building up the masses, like only let them be the war machine that Russia needs, which is obviously what it became. Um, there's a great sort of documentary on the Romanovs. Pick from pick from it what you will, but there is depictions there of Jews in there. There's a YouTube channel called the Evo Institute. Um, I watched a video from there. I think it was on there. It was footage from the period after the war in Germany. Now, the general sort of, I remember that this now is inside of the Jewish diaspora, if you like. This is their information. It's not really supposed to be watched by non-Jews. Well, I watch it because I'd found it, like it's not something like, they're not advertising it on Facebook. Put it that way. It's YIVO Institute channel. So yeah, what they're saying on there is, on this particular video, it was footage. I think it's from Spielberg's archive, right? I've put it in one of my. Is it the International Jew? I think it's the last link in my article, the International Jew 2. See, when you talk about these things, they come for you. So yeah, it's in the last link in that article, the International Jew 2, on my blog page. Peter Cooney, COONEY, enabler.wordpress.com. And yeah, you can see them. They're all dancing around. They're fit and healthy. All the men are all dead muscly. The young lads are like spring chickens, full of energy, full of beans. And it's like, hang on. Oh, and all in colour. So like, just before, just like 2 days ago, you were all like skeletons and completely undernourished. And then, like, someone says war is over, and all of a sudden you're all jumping around throwing basketballs and skipping and dancing and doing everything that you do. It's not a bit suspicious, is it? Well, I was looking at now remember that the model that the National Socialist is using is based on Frederick the Great, who was the Prussian king. What he was doing was setting up his kingdom, for advancement. Like he was very impressed with the Chinese tradition and Chinese, the rich traditions of China. So he used that as a bit of a model, and I think it was also a bit of a way to get away from like just the Russian stigma. Because tell you, man, go watch the Romanov documentary. It's like 8 hours from the very first Romanov, and you think the French lived affluently. You think the British lived affluently with their empire? Nah, not even close. They The difference would be like how the Queen of England is living now to how your average person is living now, as the way they're living, the Queen of England living now, to how the Romanovs have lived. Man, wow, really mind blowing. Like I remember I was learning about the Chinese emperors, and during the last dynasty, the Qing dynasty, the Dowager Empress, she had 26 personal chefs who would cook one dish each per mealtime for her, just for her alone. Like, these are like uh, affluent beyond belief. Those empires, and that's what England was aspiring to. But yeah, certainly there's a lot of Jewish influence in the Romanov story. A lot of rebellions and revolutions, and you know, wives killing husbands, brothers killing half brothers, and all the shit that goes on with that. And largely to a large extent, as we're seeing now with these Panama Papers, if you try, well, you stay in that bubble. End of story. It's not your money. You are allowed the use of the money for your privileged position, and never the twain shall meet. Like, I don't know how it is with you, like, but there's a lot. There's a lot of football in Liverpool. There's a lot of sports, a lot of rich people, and there's no what is it that they say the refugees should be doing? Integration. Yeah, well, there's no integration already. So they bring over people to integrate with the people who aren't integrating with, or are they integrating with the Queen, or they integrating with the aristocracy? These refugees, is that who they're integrate with? Because they're not integrating with me. They're not integrating with anyone I know. No, no, no discredit to them, but like, if you drop a cow in the middle of a pigsty, it's not a pig. It's a cow. It's a no-brainer. And I think it's the same with the dispelling the Hitler myth. It's a no-brainer. Open up a few cans of worms and see, like, they really are worms. Like, there's nothing not wormy about them, and those worms belong to a certain religion, which is what I was going to say now about the book Twilight on England. And what that says there is anti-Semitism never existed till after World War Two. Well, why would it? There was no Israel. It was anti-Judaism. Anti-Judaism because we're Christian, or paganist Christian, or if you want pagan, that's fine. You're not Jewish, are you? Do you know what I mean? There's the difference. And Hitler wasn't Jewish. Or at least show me where he's like, he's got what are them hats that they wear, and the long black coats, or show me something. Show me other than the Freemasonic handshake that he done when he met the Pope or whatever. Show me a little bit more than that. Show me like Angela Merkel. She's there in front of the Golden Menorah with 12 of the Chabad Lubavitch, with the EU flag flying behind the menorah, you know, and she's not even Jewish. Bill Clinton, Obama, Rand Paul, you know, um, they're at the Wailing Wall, so there's something like, Putin, he's there saying, about the 6 million and all that, like, while he's with the Chabad and he's with uh, Ariel Sharon. Now, my gripe about Putin, my personal gripe, is that he's never done nothing for me. In all the 20 odd years that he's been um, president of Russia, the biggest landmass on the planet, you know, the let's put it this way: the Egyptians, right? The Egyptians, 6,000 years ago, and the Egyptians are basically allegedly, you know, not African, the European, uh, which you it does tend to follow because a lot of the agricultural methods match. Go study these things, like, in races with no origins, as all races appear to have no origins. We have to take some things based on uh, habitual behavior and patterns of those habitual behaviors, and it appears to be that the habitual behavior of the Europeans is that there is a constructive element to the thinking. There's a progressive advancing momentum to their mentality. It's just it's a point of fact, like, it's not. it's not like praise to the Europeans in so much as like it's unmerited. It's it's warranted praise. Like they deserve the praise they get for the work that they've done. I'm not saying that other people's don't deserve praise. Don't be getting all that negative crap, which a lot of people can easily come in, and that is the point of what this guy in the review is saying. The reason why it wasn't, and well, obviously there was no reason to call it anti-Semitic because the Jews weren't there. The Jews weren't in Israel, so they weren't Semites in respect to the geography because they were landless. So it was anti-Judaism, and the thing is about Judaism, what this guy in the review saying. Now I don't know if it's the review of the book, and it's what the book's saying, but what he's saying is that anti-Judaism is about not religion, not a race. It's about how you behave, how you are. You know, are you being Jewish? Is that? It seems fairly easy to understand to me. Anyway, hopefully that's gone some way to dispelling the Jewish Hitler lie, because it appears to me to be a lie. And I've been through tons and tons and tons of the conspiracy theory thing, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. I've watched as much as I can find on the stuff over years and years, and exhaustively watched it. And I've met people who, the firmly convinced that Hitler wasn't a Jew, and they've given me their case. And like I've always gone, well, I'm not gonna take your word for it. Why would I take your word for it? You've told me nice enough and everything like that, but why wouldn't that be to your advantage? So, I've then gone away and I've researched it myself, which I feel I'm fully warranted in doing, and I was never stopped in doing. You know, um, uh, I've certainly called people out for being Stalin, and yeah, those people seem to know what was going down. You pepper the clues